Question. Here's an ethical question for you to think about. If you were to see a child about to fall into a well, what would you do? There's two options. Option one, your immediate reaction is to rescue the child. You don't even think about it, you do it. If your first reaction is to prevent the child from falling into the well without even thinking about it, you are a person of virtue. But if you stop and think, he could be the son of my enemy, let him fall in. Or, if you stop to think, he could be the son of my friend, warn him. Either way, you have acted out of self-interest rather than out of virtue. When it comes to doing what is right, it is not always natural, is it? And as we approach these two texts from Micah and from Matthew, if we read them seriously, I think we have to admit that they are counterintuitive. They really kind of go against the way we think and the way we act. For instance, let's talk about religion for a minute. What is it that a lot of people look for in religion? If it's not some sort of ritual that brings about their own health, their own happiness, or personal success. Maybe forgiveness for our own sins so that we don't feel bad about the terrible things that we've done. But both the passage from Micah and from Matthew emphasize the importance not of ritual, not of our own personal success, but of how we conduct ourselves in the world. And ethically, what is it that is emphasized around us in our culture? That's why I mentioned the mayor of Toronto and all of our other politicians. What is it that seems to be so widely held among us? Our culture emphasizes getting ahead, right? Beating your enemies, closing down the turnpike so that your political opponents can't be successful, right? Looking out for number one, being powerful and not being taken advantage of. The Beatitudes challenge this concept of power and success, do they not? Most of you have all heard of J.B. Phillips, right? I think we probably have a couple of Bibles around here, the Phillips translation of the New Testament. You know what I'm talking about? Phillips, J.B. Phillips. Regarding the Beatitudes, he kind of rewrote them in a way that sort of reflects the attitude of the world. And the language is a little bit out of date, but I think we understand it pretty well. This is what J.B. Phillips would call the Beatitudes of the world. Happy are the pushers, for they get on in the world. Happy are the hard-boiled, for they never let life hurt them. Happy are they who complain, for they get their own way in the end. Happy are the blasé, for they never worry over their own sins. Happy are the slave drivers, for they get results. I mean, how often do we hear that in business and politics? Hey, he's a slave driver, but he gets results. Some of you may work for somebody like that, right? Happy are the knowledgeable men and women of the world, for they know their way around. And happy are the troublemakers, for they make people take notice of them. Do we know people like this? The truth is that the behaviors that Jesus describes for us in the Beatitudes are not what comes natural.